the company that I work for, the technology that we provide changes thousands of people's day-to-day lives on the front line of an organisation. It can help to save lives. The role of the solution consultant is to be the in-between for the technical side of the organisation and your commercial, more business-focused people. So you'll often be doing product demonstrations, helping with RFPs, helping run pilots, proof of concepts, innovation workshops. So a large majority of the role is all about winning new business, so pitching for prospective client business and also expanding existing clients. And this was an insecurity I had about myself, not coming from a technical background. And what actually helped me overcome that insecurity was...
Today's episode is all about the unsung hero. Behind every great enterprise seller, there's a great enterprise solutions consultant. And today I'm joined by one of the very best. Emma Smith is a senior solutions consultant for a billion-dollar company, and today she walks us through all of her playbooks, from her days in sales to becoming a solutions consultant, how you tell great stories to clients, and how you progress throughout an industry. So guys, make sure to tune in, and if you like what you listen to, make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. You know how we do. Now back to the show. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of What My Best Friend Does, where we talk about what your best friends do, because let's be honest, nobody knows what their best friends do. You get me, Charlie. Today, I'm joined by my best friend, the solutions consultant, Emma. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm very good, thanks. Bye. How are you?
Yeah, good. Do you like the new intro? We just tried something
really
new there.
Good.
Yeah?
Loved it.
Good.
Love the energy.
Love it. We do like to start with a little icebreaker. Mm-hmm. What did you want to be growing up?
So I actually don't remember this. My best friend told me this.
Okay.
In when I was 5, in year 1, they went around the class and said, what do you want to be when you get older? I gave 2 answers. One was a Spice Girl.
Okay.
And the other was a person that finds out where time goes.
Okay.
Philosophical, bit of physics in there. So I have not achieved either of those.
You wanted to be a Spice Girl or a black hole?
Or Stephen Hawking,
or Stephen
basically.
Hawking. Okay, like you said, you aren't any of those. You're now a solutions consultant. Mm-hmm. Can you take us on your journey to becoming a solutions consultant? Like, what did you do in like secondary school? What did you study? And on from there.
Yeah, so at my kind of GCSEs and A-levels, I was quite focused on more of the English, history type subjects. I did sociology in my degree, which in a professional capacity, I wouldn't say I've used.
Okay.
It helps more with your understanding of like why the country works the way that it does and politics and things like that. Mm-hmm. And when I left uni, I didn't really know what to do. My dad worked kind of in the city in finance, and I'd done some summer jobs in sales, contact center sales, like basically fundraising for charities. And I'd always hit my targets. And my dad said, you should look at sales. So I just did what my dad said.
Okay.
And I actually started working for a PR agency, helping them to get new business, helping them to get new clients. And I did that for about 2 years. And basically we did PR for tech companies. Mm-hmm. And I thought, tech sounds like it's moving, fast paced, there's a lot going on. So I just got it into my head. I think I want to work for a tech company. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of accidentally ended up in tech sales, which, to be honest, when I look back, I didn't necessarily go through like the traditional career path that you might to get into like a closing enterprise sales role. But that's where we met, working for more of a kind of startup, scale up type tech company, originally in a sales role, which I did for a few years, and then moved into solution consulting, which there wasn't really a role for that in the company at the time, but the product was getting more complex and we were bringing on more salespeople and it was taking them a long time to close anything. And there was this kind of gap between understanding the tech and being able to talk about that in a commercially minded way to clients. And so I went into a solution consulting role there.
Let's hold it there,
Okay.
right? So there's so much to unpack in just a little bit you said there. So first things first, you did sociology at uni. Something I've started to ask people, like, did you find university beneficial? So the degree, maybe not so much, but like, do you think it was worth the price of admission?
So I went when uni fees were a little lower.
Yeah.
I think it was like $3,000 a year versus like $9,000 a year now.
Yeah.
I kind of love learning, and so you don't necessarily need to pay $3,000 a year to learn, but
Okay.
I loved it,
Okay.
and it helped me understand the world differently. From a professional standpoint, I didn't have to do that necessarily, and I think, you know, depends what position you're in. I think life experience, great, but you definitely don't need to go to uni nowadays unless you want to do more of a vocation potentially where you have to have your degree to get into that area.
I love that. And then you touched upon the fact that you didn't go down the traditional sales route. How would you define the traditional sales route, and where is it that your path differed?
Yeah, so as you're aware, quite often an entry job into sales in tech is being a BDR or an SDR.
Business development
rep.
Yeah.
So many acronyms.
Yeah.
And that's where you're really kind of doing that prospecting, building up pipeline and setting up meetings for salespeople, and you're also shadowing them and getting an understanding of what does the sales role involve. And I never really did that. So I kind of went into a closing sales role.
Straight away.
Okay. And I think I was a bit in the deep end there.
Because obviously I know because I worked with you, you went not only into the deep end, but it was the deep end of enterprise sales. So like traditionally within sales, you've got like SMB, you've got mid-market, and then you've got enterprise, which are typically like the longest sales cycles.
Yeah.
And you didn't get any of that kind of experience. So when you say you were thrown into the deep end, you were thrown straight into the longest, the most complex deals.
Yeah, I think definitely when I started though, it was more of a startup, so your deal values were lower. So obviously the bigger the deal value, the more strategic that is, the more skill it typically takes to close that deal. So I wouldn't say it's not being put into an enterprise sales role in, say, one of the tech giants, which is incredibly complex. But still, yeah, we were selling to big businesses. It was fairly competitive, and the product did grow and the industry grew. So yeah, and like looking back, that wasn't great. Like I was probably, underqualified for the job I was doing.
And then you spoke about the fact that you saw this gap as the tech got more complex, we were bringing on more salespeople, and yeah, you saw, I suppose, the kind of need for the solutions consulting role. Can you talk us through how you kind of eked out that role for yourself, I suppose, and how that kind of came about?
Yeah, definitely. And for anyone that's not aware of what a solution consultant does.
Yes, please define that. Thank you.
So you've got your salesperson who essentially owns the relationship and the deal. So that's in their pipeline. They are managing that relationship with the client. But and we sell to big businesses who want to buy our software to make changes within their company and make things more efficient, sell more, essentially. And when they're going through that process, they're going to need to understand how that technology works, understand the value that they'll get from it. There's different ways that tech can be used by different companies. So the role of the solution consultant is to bring that to life and to be the in-between for the technical side of the organization and your commercial, more business-focused people. So you'll often be doing product demonstrations, helping with RFPs, helping run pilots, proof of concepts, innovation workshops, things like that. So you're part sales, part kind of product specialist. And I saw that gap. So basically I was in my own kind of, what do I want to do next point of my career. And I literally wrote down every day, because I knew there were times in the day where I'd have like a lot of energy and I'd feel like, God, I'm really good at my job. And then there's other times where literally like an hour later I could feel a bit like downtrodden. And I literally wrote down at the end of the day what went well, or when did I get that energy and when did I not. And I kind of had this list of stuff like, okay, so I really love demoing the product. I really love understanding more about the product and getting to the technical side of things. And I also really love this aspect of it. And then I was kind of doing research and I came across solutions consulting, and it kind of matched up with exactly what I was writing. And then at the same time, we'd brought on these new salespeople who were talking about, why don't we have solution consultants? I've got to learn how to demo the product myself. And it was taking these people a long time to close a deal. So it was just kind of an opportune kind of preparation meets opportunity, whatever it's called. And I was lucky that my manager, I kind of went and said, look, I think this plays to my strengths, and I also think the business needs it. And so they kind of started it off as a 3-month trial. And it was really great because I got to kind of decide how I would engage with the sales team, where the roles sat within the organization. Then that 3-month trial turned into
however many years you've been doing it for now. So you've obviously held jobs in sales, you've held roles in solutions consulting. You mentioned the fact that solutions consulting bridges the gap between sales and technical. What would you say are the key skills required to be a successful solutions consultant? Yeah,
interesting. So, and I think when I look across my team, or the team that I work with, we're quite different actually. And there's not like a one size fits all. And I think embrace certain, your differences. But I think that some of the commonalities that we have are, one is a curiosity and a willingness to learn. Technology is always changing. And you kind of have to be okay with being uncomfortable with what you don't know and having that kind of drive to learn more and drive to understand. I think the other side is the ability to communicate. And when I say curiosity, I think that extends to people and who you're talking to and what are their problems and really getting under the skin of those. And when I say communication, it's not just about how you articulate stuff or how you explain it. It is about how you listen and how you understand who you're talking to, what makes them tick, why are they saying the things that they're saying, and then being able to tailor and deliver your response back to them. And that takes work. That's quite exhausting. And then I would say also it's a bit more of a less tangible thing that I think solution consultants have in common, but it's kind of this almost service mentality. Like I want to help. I want to help the sales director. I want to help people internally. I want to help product marketing. I want to help product. I want to help my clients. You kind of almost have to be a bit selfless in that respect. And I think I like helping. I think I like to people please sometimes, and I think that this role does play to that. So I think those are some of the skills that are needed if you want to be successful in the field.
I love that. And, hearing you talk about, the various things there, it sounds like the years you had in sales helped to kind of forge you down the path. Do solutions consultants typically do sales before moving into solutions consultancy? What would you say the typical path is?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I would say coming from a sales background is not the typical path.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that you're both in revenue generating roles. You both get paid commission, but solution consultants get paid less commission than sales. So typically what people do is go from solutions consulting to sales.
Because they could get more bang for their buck.
Exactly. And you think, well, I'm doing so much of this anyway, I might as well get paid more for every deal that I close. Where I've seen people come from is maybe more of a technical background. So they might work in more your professional services, so working to implement technology for clients, working in a CSM role maybe, where you're interacting with the client. Where I work, we often hire people from the big four consultancies. So, Deloitte,
PwC,
all the rest of it, or other consultancies, because they understand business strategy, they understand solutioning. So that's often where we source people from.
Okay, I love that. And, you mentioned the fact that you love learning. when I think solutions consultant, I definitely lean on these guys are very technical, and they can distill very complex concepts. How do you go about learning those complex concepts? Because I think there are some people who they might look at the solutions consultant role and find it quite daunting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not technical enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure that when you looked at yourself a few years ago, you probably had the same thoughts that you weren't technical enough.
Yeah.
How do you bridge the gap, I suppose, is the question, so you feel confident talking about complex things?
Yeah, and this was an insecurity I had about myself, not coming from a technical background. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I overcame that in just a sec. But what I would say is, if you have that curiosity to learn, technology at the end of the day, if you look at lines of code, it looks complex.
Yeah.
But when you think about the human elements of technology and what is the value someone gets out of the code that's been built and out of that technical side of it, and if you can focus on that and focus on the storytelling aspect of the value, that's actually what clients like. Clients don't want to be lectured in technical concepts. So if you can dip in, get a technical concept, but then make it digestible and be able to tell a story with it and talk about value, you're going to get clients and prospects that respond much better to that than someone that's overly technical. Mm-hmm. And I do think that's where coming from more of a commercial background helps, because it's actually sometimes harder to teach the communication side and the distilling down than it is to someone that actually is prepared to feel a bit uncomfortable, read about concepts that they don't know. There's so many online courses as well. I've been doing one on AI at the moment, because that's Gen AI is like the big buzz thing in tech.
Do you use Udemy, or what resources do you use?
So for that one, I have used Udemy in the past. I can't remember the name of.
We're going to put it in the show notes. Don't worry.
I can't remember what I can send you the exact. It was applied AI, so learning it in a business context, which I think is really important.
Is it a free or paid course?
It was a free for a week trial.
Okay.
So as long as you complete the week.
Yeah.
And also there's LinkedIn Learning. Go to your work, get them to invest. They're investing in you, which is investing in the company at the end 100%. Of the day. And then I would say the other part of what I was going to say. Wait there, by
you were basically saying you had insecurities about learning, not being technical enough.
Yeah. I know what I was going to say. So one thing I will say is that some solution consultant roles can be more on the technical side. So if you are selling to like developers, for example, really complex, maybe back-end system software, you will potentially need some proof that you can code, for example. So the technical level of a solution consultant can vary depending on the type of company that you're working for and the type of buyer you have.
Okay.
The other part that I was going to say about the technical side, so this was something I was very insecure about. And what actually helped me overcome that insecurity was going out and job hunting and going to the market. I literally thought, it was a pandemic. I thought, I don't want to leave my job in a pandemic, but I kind of want to be ready to leave when this craziness ends. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to go and interview. And I literally saw it as like kind of a data gathering exercise of like, why would I get rejected? What do I need to learn to get jobs in other places where I don't know the technology as well, and they're going to expect me to have these technical skills? And actually, as I went around and interviewed, they were like, it's really unusual to get such a commercially focused solution consultant. You can learn the product. That's totally fine. We've got loads of resources for that. We've got loads of people that get our product. What's harder is to teach you those soft skills. And I actually realized how valuable that was. And that is a piece of advice that I would give, particularly if you've been in a company for a long time. Go and job hunt. And it's a bit of a pain, but don't see it as job hunting. Go and see it as, how does the market receive me? What do they like about what I do versus what do they not? And I think sometimes it's hard to see that when you're bogged down in your day to day.
And you're just trying to make ends meet and survive. Yeah.
And you just take it for granted what you know a lot of the time, particularly if you've been somewhere a long time, or if you're junior and you've not been around the block with jobs. I see it a lot with my friends that are unhappy in jobs or feel like they're not getting paid enough. Don't put pressure on yourself to look for jobs when you absolutely need to. Go out, play the field, have conversations. Doesn't mean you're going to take any of them.
Yeah.
You might be pleasantly surprised and come across the job of your dreams, or it just might help you kind of align where you need to focus, or actually what you're doing really well at, and grow your confidence. So that's how I helped kind of overcome my insecurity around not being technical and potentially a technically perceived job.
So I absolutely love that, by the way. And like, I think people listening to us are going to love that. The question I have on that, when you're going and you're doing these interviews, like, how is it that you make sure you solicit the correct feedback? Like, when you're interviewing, are you not demanding, but you asking for feedback, whether it's positive or negative, to make sure you get that data together?
Absolutely. And I remember one company that I very almost went to go work for, they were so great at it. They were so open, and they also loved that I wanted to hear the feedback, because that shows coachability. It shows you're prepared to be vulnerable and learn. And the best people that interview you will give you feedback. The ones that don't leave a great taste in the mouth for going to work there, because it shows they're not as invested in you right up front. And the further down the job interview process you get, the more you should expect that feedback, particularly if you've done a task or something like that.
100%. And, you know, whilst we're on the subject of interviews, I think, something I love to talk about is like interview prep and what it is guests on this show do, either when they're interviewing people or when they're going for interviews. To the listener who's potentially going for like a technical role, a presentation role, what are the key considerations or the key points that you hit in interviews to make sure you've given the best impression of yourself?
Yeah, so obviously, first of all, you want to research who you're talking to, what the company is, be able to reel off a high-level kind of explanation about what you believe their focus is and what they do, just so that if they turn that back on you, you can. I think one of the bits of advice I got given by a recruiter, actually, was always think about the story that you're telling about yourself. So think about every job you've had and what skills you got from it or what you learned, even if it didn't go well. Be able to, when you're job interviewing, tell that story, bring it to life, back up things with evidence as well. So when you're saying, I hit my targets, remember what those targets were, remember where you landed to target, or whatever it is, be prepared for them to say, can you give me an example of that?
Yeah.
And just run through with friends, with family. I think this is important when you're interviewing, but also in your job. You've got to kind of be vulnerable and be prepared to get feedback in order to improve. And not every interview is going to go well, and that's totally fine. I think it's about almost debriefing with yourself afterwards and thinking, like, what would I have said there? But I think if you're comfortable in your story and you are keen to just get that across, have that conversational style interview. Don't feel too pressured or formal, and see it as a chat. And also, you have to remember the interview process is just as much about them trying to sell to you as you're trying to sell to them.
Yep.
So you should also be asking them questions that are important to you, and make sure that you get that feedback from them as well.
Yeah. Can I just say, I love what you said about being vulnerable and making sure that you run things by friends and family. If I share a little bit about myself, like in the past, I've had to interview for roles, and like you say, you're not always successful. And I remember there was one interview where they gave a specific piece of feedback to me. They were like, oh, you didn't give enough examples of X. And I remember, like, I went to one of my former bosses and I was like, this was the feedback. How would you have answered this if you were me? And they gave examples. Oh, you've done this, this. And it's like, sometimes you're so like caught up in your own story of the way you perceive yourself. By going out to other people and getting that feedback, you're going to help to add to a flourishing story, and be able to give a better representation of yourself.
Totally.
So yeah, great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say on this before we touch on any red flags for things, because I'm sure that you've like interviewed people for roles at your organization. Are there any red flags and things that are just big no-nos when people are interviewing?
I think it comes back to the basics. Did you answer the question properly? Did you listen to it? Did you give the examples? Because sometimes when I dig into something and they can't give the examples, you do just feel like, well, you know, it's hard to believe, right? But also I think just showing your keenness and showing enthusiasm to the role. I would never expect someone that I'm interviewing to be the finished article, but you want to feel like that's someone that you could mold and you could develop and is coachable. And I think, you know, by doing things like asking for feedback, clarifying questions if you need to, that just shows that kind of self-awareness and intelligence. But yeah, the things that people most let themselves down on, I just think it comes back to basics of listening and clarifying where you need to, and not feeling ashamed to say, I don't quite get that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see people just carry on down this path and you think, you know, just, back to
yeah. Okay, I love that. All right. So you earlier in the conversation, you defined the role of solutions consultant. Can you talk me through or talk us through like a typical day and week in your life and what the role actually involves? Yeah,
absolutely. So a large majority of the role is all about winning new business. So pitching for prospective client business and also expanding existing clients. And so what we'll do in that is we will have discovery calls where we learn more about the aims of that business. We're really trying to get under the skin of their strategy, where they currently are and what their desired future state is. And once we've got that, we then build the start of what we call a solution design. So this maps out, okay, your business is here and you want to get here. Here's how our company could help you get there. And then as part of the next stage, we'll often perform a demonstration of the technology. And that demonstration will be me going into the platform, showing them examples of how the technology would satisfy those use cases, bring it to life, and really leaning on that storytelling aspect. So rather than saying all the features and functions that are available, it's about showing them how they would get value from the platform. And then from there, on that sales cycle, we'll do deep dives, we'll do more technical sessions. I'll produce a lot of documentation and mapping out that solution design and the value that they'll get from it. We'll work on ROI models as well, so that they can then go back to the business and justify why they need to spend all this money on a new bit of technology. No one really wakes up in the morning thinking, I want to buy some tech today. So that's part of what a solution consultant's job is to do, is to really bring that emotional connection to what you're talking about. And a lot of technology is quite similar. So how are you going to stand out from the crowd? It's by connecting it to what's important to them. So that's why it's so important to think about value and why that discovery goes throughout the whole sales cycle. As part of this as well, we might be responding to requests for proposals, which are usually big documents that businesses send out when they're going to market and they want to look at a number of vendors, and making sure that they're showing that they've ticked all the boxes when it comes to decision criteria. There's also an element of my role that's more strategic thinking. So I work really closely with the sales director. We'll map out accounts, we'll think about how can we expand this client, or what innovation opportunities are over here, what messaging can we push to this type of vertical to try and drum up some new business. I also help with more kind of go-to-market and product messaging, so working internally with teams like product when we're releasing new features or functionality on how should we demo these? How should we be talking about it? How could we then enable the rest of the business to talk about it in the right way? And we have a whole department for demo engineering, which are people that look after demo environments. There are so many demo environments at my work. We have a suite of many, many different products that have all come in through acquisition. So I really love that, thinking about how can we talk about things in the right way? And then you see that permeate to the front line and to, across the business of actually, this is how we're going to, sorry, I'm like
no. I'm literally transfixed as you're explaining that, and like where I wanted to go from there. You spoken about how you communicate stuff, the art of storytelling, being part of these teams. My question is, how do you build that muscle? Like, there isn't are you getting training on how to do this? Has it just come through years of experience? How is it that you build that muscle to be able to understand how to tell the right story to sell a particular product, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so there's a few angles. So the first one is we use a methodology called command of the message.
Okay.
Command of the message has several stages. It's kind of a framework that you can follow within sales to talk about value rather than about
features,
technology.
Yeah.
So it kind of mirrors what's the client's current state, why is that not good enough, where do they want to be, what required capabilities do they need in order to get that, and where have we done that before, or where is this uniquely aligned to our differentiators versus maybe the competition.
Okay.
This is also a way of qualifying whether this is a good opportunity for us, because actually if the required capabilities don't match up with our differentiators, not much chance of us winning the deal. So it works on a number of levels, and I then use that as the basis of what am I going to demo, what are the solutions. When you have many different products that do different things and whole suites, you have to be able to have a way of doing that. But that's not enough to then tell a story. So I think that this comes back to what we were talking about earlier of the art of communication, which is far more heavily focused on the listening element than I think people maybe think.
Okay.
So you can only tell a story that will resonate if you understand what is important to that person, what are their pain points, what is their business like. And I think that this is where you have to have a certain level of, like, again, curiosity and also empathy of, I'm not just waiting to say the spiel I want to say and tick off all the things I know we can do really well. I really want to understand you. And then the storytelling aspect of it, you have to then focus it on outcomes and values. So by doing this, it will result in this for you. And this is important for you because of this. And then you also bring that to life with client examples. So Apple did this by blah, blah, blah. This is the problem they had. They were in a really similar position to you. And people can always relate to stories where others were in a similar situation to them. You're always going to resonate more from that than something else. That's why, watching people on reality TV and stuff is so entertaining, because we can all kind of relate to what is going on for those people.
I have a question. It might be different for like enterprise, because you obviously deal with customers who are spending millions and millions of dollars. Do you ever have instances where you're trying to do that discovery and the clients don't really know the issue or the pain point? So my question is, if discovery isn't like what are the questions you ask to make sure, like, are there some go-to phrases you use to make sure you get the relevant information that's going to help to tailor stories you're telling when providing the relevant solution? Yeah,
it's a difficult situation to be in, but to be honest with you, very rarely do you have a discovery with a client where they just list off all the pain points that they have. This is where your expertise comes in and your experience. So I think even just understanding or getting under the skin of, they should know, what does the business want to do? Is your focus on reducing costs, even just as simple as that, or is it selling more? Can you at least tell me that? Giving them options. So, and then you can say, right, so businesses that want to reduce costs, they often have problems here, here, and here. Do any of those resonate with you? Which of those would be a higher priority for you? So it's about coming with examples and coming with experience and kind of leading them to the water.
Pushing them to the right thing.
You also have to be able to determine when you're talking to the wrong person. Because if someone is unable to give you any answers and is really unable to articulate what's going on in their organization, they might be the loveliest person and you might be having what feels like a really nice conversation. But I think one of the problems that everyone has is like, actually, if you boil down the amount of time you have in a week to things that were productive and led to the results you want, that's probably actually a small slither of your week. And so you can end up wasting time with people that are never going to buy.
So how do you disqualify bad leads?
What would I look at in terms of...
So like you're listening to this person, they're not giving you what you want, like you're on a potential demo, you realise do you just cut the demo there and then, or do you like complete it and then...
It's very rare. Usually the discovery should be good enough where we know that we're at least in some way. And really the bigger and larger enterprise deals that you go on, you maybe even have like multiple discoveries and presentations before you ever get into a demo.
Okay.
I have been on some calls where I have said to them, look, what you need is not what we do. You would be better placed looking in this area. I'm going to show you what we do, just so you really understand. And that's always met with, they
appreciate the transparency. Yeah.
And that storytelling, it comes back to trust as well. And by telling people what's not right for them, they're then going to believe you when you tell them what is right for them.
Yeah.
And the way you have to think about sales is not, God, how much can we sell? Can I hit my target? It's about growing a business in a sustainable way that creates like fruitful relationships on both sides in the long term.
Yeah.
And you might be able to pull the wool out of someone's eyes and sell them something, but that's not going to go well for you further down the line. As a CSM, you know better than most.
Sell the dream, service the nightmare. But I'm going to stop saying that because salespeople don't like it when I say that, so I'm going to stop. All right, so where do I want to go next? So, you've been, as a solutions consultant, like you said, you work for a company that has a lot of complex softwares, shall we say. How do you go about staying on top of information and like whenever changes are happening, how do you keep on top of like information?
So we have some enablement. Obviously attend all the enablement sessions. I like to just go in and use it. So I think the best way to understand any technology is use it the way the client would use it. So I will go in and try and analyze data or create a new action or whatever it might be. And only then do I feel like I actually get what the technology does, because there's so many buzzwords, everything can sound the same. Getting your hands dirty, don't be afraid to do that. What I would say as well is, particularly in bigger organizations where they make acquisitions, there are some technologies that everyone's kind of innately scared of. So we acquired a technology that was quite different from what the core business does. And there's this kind of fear to get involved and sell it. And actually, a piece of advice I would give to anyone in any business, whether you're in tech or not, is the thing that everyone's scared of, run towards. That's one way of becoming valuable, is if you create a specialism in something that might seem overwhelming, that might seem out of your comfort zone, but that's your USP, and that's where you can then deliver more value in the business. So I think it's just about having the right attitude. I know it's a bit cheesy, but I remember when I read Growth Mindset. And I just think that's so true. It's quite obvious, but when you read it, that's exactly the way we should approach things. Like a growth mindset is approaching things with an attitude of, I don't know that, but I can know it. And we give ourselves these labels, I'm not technical, I'm not this, I'm not that. Like anyone can really do anything if you put enough hours into it. It's 100%. It's not a ask Venus and Serena how long they spend practicing tennis. So I'm not saying I'm Venus or Serena, Nelly.
She's not a tennis player.
But that went a bit deep on quite a simple question there. But I do think it's more of a philosophical mindset. It's very easy to learn, I think, if you just read information and apply it, but it's about having the right attitude behind it as well.
100%. I love it. Where do I want to go from there? So, yeah, you've mentioned the fact that, you know, you're part of some complex deals. You deal with some, you know, very senior stakeholders. There's millions of dollars on the line with the deals you're trying to win. How do you approach adversity, right? What is, are there any situations that stick out, like this was a horrible experience, and like, how do you overcome setbacks?
Yeah, so obviously the nature of sales and the pro and the con of sales is the buzz when you get deals in, or you feel like you've just had blood, sweat and tears every time it comes over the line, but you can't win every deal. So there's like a few ways. So one is you kind of have to embrace that. You kind of have to be, and I think this is, to go into a commercially minded role, you kind of have to love the risk of it as well. And you kind of have to be, you have to get some kind of buzz off of it in the first place. Let me think. How do I overcome adversity? I think, and this isn't sales specific, this is probably the best advice I could give anyone about anything in a work context.
This is why we're here.
Is in your job, you should have a certain percentage of your day or your week where you feel like, I'm good at this, I'm comfortable at this, I know what I'm doing. And then you should have another percentage that feels challenging, that is difficult, that is high effort, that is demotivating sometimes, that you're failing at, but that you have to have a certain percentage of your day or your week that's like that, because that is the only way that you grow. And I think the percentage or ratio of those two sides of the spectrum can change based on where you are in your life. When you're really early on in your career, it might feel like that's a higher percentage of your day. When you get later on, actually, it might be 80% you're fine with, but actually you're focusing more on a work-life balance. You've got an issue out of work with your family, and you just need to be able work to not be stressful in that moment. But I think one of the ways that I deal with that adversity is to kind of see it as growth. Like, this is a moment in which I am going through, and it can accelerate your career if you put yourself in a situation, like I said, with the sales role where I was really out of my depth. It's a way of accelerating your career by surrounding yourself in situations where you don't really know what you're doing. I think it's important to ask for help if that's becoming overwhelming or you're anxious. It's important to have people in the business that you can go to just offload, and a manager that you can talk to about it, and to recognize if it's getting towards the other end of the spectrum where you're at risk of burning out. It's about having a healthy tension between those two ends of the spectrum. But you've got to see it as growth, and it will make you resilient by putting yourself in that situation. That in itself makes you resilient as you go through. So I don't really think I have a methodology other than like just a mindset.
See everything as a learn. That's it. Like, see everything as a learn.
Yeah.
And see everything as something. Well, see every experience as something where you grow. I think that's the key takeaway from there. All right. You've been at your organisation, we were just speaking about it, technically for 9 years, but that 9 years is broken into like a 4 and a 5. Yeah. But we don't need to get into that. Like, what is it that has allowed you to stay in one place so long? And the reason I ask that, like, you know, I've been in roles, especially like with sales-based roles, people say, you know, being somewhere for 3 years is a long time, let alone 9. So for those people who maybe are getting a bit restless, they're not sure whether to stick or to go somewhere else, what should be the key considerations between staying and potentially looking for somewhere new? Yeah,
so I think that kind of what I just mentioned around how much are you pushing yourself and how much are you plateauing, really stay tuned into that, because when you start to plateau, that also might be where you start to become bored, demotivated, and that's totally fine. That just means you need a new challenge. So how I've gone about it is, looking internally, talking to people, about other areas of the organization that you can move into, building relationships internally, makes your work more fun, but it also means that you've got people that want you to move into their team, that are offering you, why don't you come into product? Why don't you do this? Why don't you move over to America? So whilst I don't want to sound like keeping your network warm, that sounds like it's quite gratuitous type thing. But actually, if you have good relationships, doors will open for you in your organization. Yeah. But I think it also comes back to what I said before around interview every 2-3 years. I've come very close to leaving. I handed in my notice and ended up staying. And the reason was I felt like I'd hit a ceiling. I wasn't learning anymore. I was plateauing and I needed a new challenge. But then there was a change in circumstance that presented a new challenge for me. And so I ended up staying and I helped with an acquisition and the go-to-market of that acquisition and the enablement. And that was a really valuable piece of experience for me. So I think from my perspective, I never planned to stay somewhere for 9 years. I've actively tried to. But I think
she enjoys it now though, you listening.
But I think it's just happened that organically, if you work hard, if you build good relationships, if you're always pushing yourself to learn more, these opportunities will open up. But there's also nothing wrong with leaving, going somewhere else. I totally believe in that. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend staying at someone for 9 years unless you are being challenged in different ways.
You're getting those challenges. I love that. You spoke there as you were giving that answer about like networking, right? And the importance of networking internally. Like, this might sound like a silly question, but like, what is your approach to building that network internally so you're getting those offers to, you know, work for this department and that department? Because I think sometimes, I mean, I had someone on the podcast previously and yeah, they say you have to be willing to speak to other departments just so you get like an understanding of those other departments. But I think sometimes people are so stuck in what they're doing. And if they're in a global company, maybe they feel like they can't talk to people in other locales. Like, what is your approach to getting that visibility?
Yeah, and I think in the modern world of Zoom and Teams as well, it makes it even harder. A lot of people are fully remote, so you don't even know who the people are, maybe even in your own country. So I think personally, I was lucky in that I was part of some projects that gave me a bit of more of a global exposure. So I think where you see things going on that are maybe not exactly in your role, but you've got an interest in that, go message someone, look them up on the company system and say, I'm curious about how you come up with these new demo environments. I'm just giving you an example that's very specific to my work. And think about what's your interests and reach out, to people that maybe have something to do with that may be in a different department, different role. I think where you can get to face-to-face events, make the effort to do it. If there are in-person meetings, and so I was in Vegas recently for a conference and for sales kickoff. And it is tempting to stick with the people I know from the UK side of the business that are my friends. And I made like a real effort to actually be with the American side of the business and be with people in different departments. We also have a mentor program and a mentee program, and you can put yourself forward for that. And that could be a good way of meeting people. We also have groups within our business that arrange cross-geography and cross-functional kind of events. So it could be volunteering, it could be meetings about social issues that people care about. It could be just something that's maybe slightly adjacent to your role, but that can build bonds across departments, across time zones, that also plays to something that you care about. It can be a nice way of doing it. But I think it is about raising your hand when you see projects or you see things happening. Be curious. It comes back to that again. And also just take an interest in people when you're working on a project with them. Have fun in your role. Like there will be times where you're working in cross-functional teams. Suggest drinks after a project's done.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a drink to bond
A
people
little bevy.
together.
Yeah.
And if you don't drink, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Do something else. But you do have to make effort. I think you have to make more effort in this day and age, and you have to get a bit creative about it. But don't be scared to reach out to people that you like the sound of what they do, or you kind of admire them. People love to form connections.
They really do, don't they?
Yeah.
People like to
Talk about themselves.
yeah. And connect is so true,
Yeah.
isn't it? I think sometimes, just offering that olive branch, you'd be surprised. Like I've started reaching out to more people at the company where I work, and people are only too happy to give up 15 minutes, 30 minutes of their time. So definitely do that for sure. All right. Where do I want to go next? So I had a few things I wanted to ask. So the first thing is, do you manage people at the moment?
I don't, no.
Have you managed people?
No, not really.
Okay.
What I would say, and for people that want to get into tech as well, there's a bit of a line between being an individual contributor and being a manager. So an individual contributor means that you don't necessarily manage people, but you can get very senior and very kind of strategic being an individual contributor, which usually means you're revenue generating in some way. And it's something that you can... I think it benefits people that like to almost be their own boss in a way, that like to be the masters of their own destiny. And I love the freedom that I get from being an individual contributor. It means you can still coach other people. So I do take part in some coaching and some mentoring of people, and I get a lot from that. But it also means that my day-to-day is spent on what I think is delivering value and being quite selfish in my work. And not on HR issues and escalations.
I asked the right question, but I asked it in the wrong way. So the question is, have you done management? You said no, but that was out of choice. Because I think a lot of people, to your point, they see management as like the logical next step for progression. But what you've basically said there, you can still progress whilst not being a manager, and you can also get your fix of management by doing the coaching, right? Yeah,
and the fix of what I get out of it is I love to see people progress and to achieve the things that they want to achieve. And I think it does come, again, sound like a broken record, but to that like curiosity around people. And it's another way of harnessing that. And you get a lot out of me. I learn from mentees as well. And absolutely, it doesn't mean I don't want to go into management someday, but you absolutely can progress without needing to get into management.
Love totally. That. In the role of solutions consultant, what would you say is like the most stressful aspect?
I think the most stressful aspect, so one is if you're aligned to bringing in new business, you are on the front line of company growth. The economy is bad. It's tough. Businesses are trying to spend less money, not more. And they have had a history of buying too much technology and not using it. And so they're a lot more cautious in where they're investing. So it just means that deals are difficult. It's difficult to close deals, and you have a target to hit, and that can be stressful, but I think you also have to have some buzz from that as well. And then the other stressful thing, and I'm not even sure this is necessarily stress, it's just more the ups and downs of the role, is that for every super exciting and complex and deal that's pushing your creativity and your learning, there are also the boring deals and the deals that actually are not that exciting but are taking up a lot of your time and are not the way that you want to spend your time, and you just kind of have to be okay with that. And then that gets me onto time management, which I could imagine could be stressful if you find that stressful. It's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of salespeople fighting over space in your diary. You have to be quite protective of your diary and protective of your time, which is difficult when you're someone that's natural inclination is to help and to want to get involved. But I think the older you get, the more you just become better at managing that time. So I'm lucky. I don't really get stressed that easily.
Okay.
But I think if you were someone who got stressed, it's just the pressure of closing deals. Eyes are on you. And if you don't close them, like, we make redundancies and people get chopped, and that's a horrible atmosphere to be in, and you kind of are on the front line of that.
I love that. Well, I don't love people get chopped, but like I understand what you're saying is what I mean. And then on the reverse, what would you say the most rewarding aspect of being a solutions consultant is?
Yeah, so it's kind of what I mentioned before around when I'm working with clients and prospects where what they want to do is innovative. They want to push the boundaries. I get to be creative with how I think about technology and how that's applied to solve real world problems. Like the company that I work for, the technology that we provide changes thousands of people's day-to-day lives on the front line of an organization. It can help to save lives in medical situations. Like, it is technology, but it does have material impact for people. And when you're helping to design solutions that affect that, I really love that. I think as well, because I love that kind of helping side of things, I love working when I've got a really good relationship with the sales director and you feel like you're a team. And I get a lot of satisfaction from helping to manage a project team internally to drive everyone towards a result. It could be high pressure, it could be time pressure, but that's where I really get the buzz, is when the pressure's on. So that's probably where I find the reward. But I'm also very aware it's not saving lives in the traditional sense of if you work in the medical profession and in education, and I have wrestled with that. And what I would say is I find that element of reward outside of work. Like I make sure I do volunteering and stuff, and that helps me to be a bit more okay with maybe not getting that level of reward from my job, as bad as that sounds.
No, I get that. I like that. Solutions consulting, are there any common misconceptions about a solutions consultant? Like, what do people think about a solutions consultant? Like, that's just not true. What comes to mind as I say that?
Well, I mean, when I say my job title to like family members, they don't know what a solution consultant is. So there was not that kind of wider misconception. I think it's what we were saying earlier around the need to be technical is a misconception I had about it. Like I said, there are certain solution consultant roles where you do need to be quite technical. It's not necessarily the case. The other misconception I would say amongst the sales directors, which are the people that we help, is that your solution consultant is there to demo the product for you.
Yeah.
The sales directors that use solution consultants in the best way, in my experience, are people that see you as a partnership, as a team. I will go above and beyond for the sales directors where they need me to, particularly those ones that work with me as a partner. We strategize together. We live and breathe the deal together. One of my sales directors he's above my mum in my most frequently contacted.
I know who that is.
And the sales directors that see us as a demo monkey, they never do well and they never last long.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common misconception internally in the sales world.
I get that. I love that. And are there any emerging trends you're noticing, whether like for solutions consultants or in the wider like tech industry?
Yeah, the AI buzzword. So generative AI particularly. So more and more clients want to talk about it. We're building it into our products. So just upskilling yourself on that. For me, what's really interesting about AI is not the models that are used or the different ways of programming AI. It's about how will that change lives for humans, and how can we take menial tasks off of people and actually create jobs that are maybe more fulfilling for them. But it's also about how we use AI internally to make ourselves more productive. Yeah. Emerging trends for solution consultants. I just think the concept of a solution consultant, if you look at the past 5, 10, 15 years in technology, there is more emphasis on solution consultants and hiring good solution consultants. The buyer can do more research than ever before. They come to you more informed than ever before. And so within a sales process, particularly those high value strategic sales, you have to be more consultative than ever before. You have to find solutions for that customer, and talking generic doesn't really cut it. So I think, and also we're a cheaper resource than the salesperson in the amount of commission you have to pay out. So I think businesses are harnessing that. You know, we're put on a bit of a pedestal sometimes by organizations. And I just think it is a really good role to get into, because it opens so many doors, and there is so much value put on a solution consultant, and you really will find it hard to be out of a job, I think, if you're a good solutions consultant. So just even the role in general is a bit of an emerging trend in a way.
Okay, I love that. The role sounds like there's a lot going on. Do you have any productivity hacks?
I'm probably not the right person to ask that, because I think the way my brain works, it thrives in a certain level of chaos.
I knew you were going to say that.
Which can be both a positive, a strength, and a negative.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, I'm very...
thinking, sorry, as you say that, I'm thinking of the meme of the little girl as like the swings are burning in the background.
So for me personally, I'm quite an easily distracted person.
Okay.
I turn off all my notifications for emails and Slack and all the rest of it. I also think this expectation that we all reply to each other instantly is not healthy. So it's kind of almost setting your own boundaries. I actually turn my Slack to offline all the time. And for me personally, like one of my downfalls, if I don't keep an eye on it, is procrastinating the things that I don't want to do. So just as a habit, I start the task I want to do least first. Sometimes it's not always the most important, but it gets it out the way. And then I'm more productive in my day. And then if I've got something I really need to focus on, I literally set a timer, a 20-minute timer on my phone. And I think I'm going to work for 20 minutes solidly on this thing, which maybe doesn't sound like that's long for some people.
No. There's an app, the Bear app.
Really?
Yeah, it's been an app. Set a timer on your phone. You won't be able to use it as well. So it will allow for a focused 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good hack.
I'm not putting the link because they don't sponsor and I don't get no commission.
Send this to them and they might be, but just literally boxing my time into 20 minutes. I'm going to focus on this one thing because my brain is quite all over the place. Yeah. I'm really good at flitting between things and still getting it all done. But sometimes you've got to focus. So yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask, but those are probably, start your hardest thing first. Box off your time a bit.
I love that. The next thing I'm going to say, so every 3 years you say you need to interview, make sure you know your value, this, that and the other. So with that in mind, you must have done like a lot of research on like solutions consultants and like how much you get paid. So yeah, to the listener who's potentially looking to do a role, how much, what is the range and how does it break between like your base salary and your percentage as a range? You're not talking about yourself.
Yeah, that's fine. So I would say a solution consultant base range, and I'm not 100% on this because I didn't come in entry level in the role, but I'd probably say like 50 to 60K all the way up until you're like, you know, you could be a really senior person that's been an individual contributor for years that's earning 200K base, more potentially. Your commission, so what happens is you have your base, your commission is then a percentage of the deals that you close, typically. Commission plans change year to year. But that range would usually then be like 20 to 40% on top of your base.
40% of 200K? What? I'm in the wrong business. No, I'm joking.
And like I said, you're more tenured. I don't want to say you're coming in at that level. And it depends on your geography. It depends on the size of the deals that you're closing. But there is earning potential in it. Most people don't stay in solutions consulting for a long time. They move on to other realms. So the percentage of those really earning top dollar is smaller. But there is some money there. One thing I would say is I think it took me a while to feel like I was fairly compensated, and I know I was underpaid for years, and I think that I can sell technology and talk confidently about technology. I find it a lot harder to sell myself. And I definitely see this, and I'm massively stereotyping here, or generalizing, more in women than men. And I think a lot of the time what I observe in some people is just this kind of, I'm entitled to be here. Whereas I think one of my shortcomings has kind of been, I constantly feel like I need to prove why I'm here. And that can then result in maybe not asking for the money that you're wanting or that you deserve. So what I would say is to anyone that maybe is more like me, that feels less comfortable talking about money, that feels less comfortable stating their achievements and asking for things, is you have to recognize it as a shortcoming because you can't get away from it. And I have a few trusted people in my life that are really good at it. And I go to them and I talk it through and I get them to tell me, like, how would you approach a situation like this? I will make a list of the reasons why I deserve a pay rise and quantify things, and make sure in your reviews that you're understanding tangibly, what do I need to do to get to that next level? I've unfortunately never worked anywhere that's given me pay bands or tells me what my salary range is. I was talking about this with my manager yesterday. I still don't understand, am I top of a ceiling? And you're well within your rights to go and ask that from an organisation. And I do absolutely think that going and interviewing, it's not so you can blackmail your company with, I've got another offer. It helps you to understand your market worth and what people are talking about. And so staying connected in that way is another way to grow confidence in terms of what you should be expecting. So I do think it's something that some people find harder to talk about than others. And we don't talk about it enough. And I try and be a bit more open about it with my friends as well, because I do think there's an element of sharing salaries to a degree is healthy, and talking about it is healthy, but not necessarily encouraged.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we used to work together, they're like, you can't talk about it, because they know as soon as people realise that they're getting paid different amounts of money to do the same thing, all bets are off. But I think when it comes to salaries and stuff, you got to not compare yourself to other people, to your point. You have to understand the value you bring. And when you understand the value you bring, it's going to allow you to have those conversations, like you said, to make sure you're getting paid your worth. So never ask for a pay increase just because someone else got it. You need to understand the tangible value you bring and use that as the basis for the conversations to drive up what you earn.
Yeah, other people is a yardstick, right? To know if you're in the right range.
Yeah.
But when you're asking for one and justifying it, you've absolutely got to talk to your achievements, your strengths. Again, make them as tangible and measurable as possible. Because, everyone wants a pay rise. And one thing I would say about anyone wanting to get into tech as well is another kind of piece of the pie when it comes to compensation is shares. So you can negotiate getting shares at a business. If you go for the startup route, anyone thinking of getting into tech, you've got to weigh up the benefits of a startup, which are higher risk. A lot of startups fail, but your potential payoff at the end of that, if you have shares and it goes well, is higher. You can go into a more established company. You might be slightly more junior, but you have got that stability of a bigger company. It's nice to have that kind of mix between the two when you are thinking of moving. So if you are thinking of asking for a pay rise, it's hard to get more on your base. You can also ask, so at my company, we have a personal commission rate. So what I get paid in commission might not be the same rate as someone else in my team. So as you get more senior, you can ask for a higher percentage. And then you can also ask for equity as well. Yeah,
I love it, Emma. This has been so informative, can I just say. To anybody who's considering getting into tech or specifically a solutions consultant role, what would your main piece of advice be to them? Yeah, I think for tech, think about the product itself. Do you believe in that product? Can you see the real world value of it? Does it resonate with you in some way? It's a long old day if you've got to talk about a product that you don't give a shit about.
And think also about both the product and the execution of that company. Are they delivering on what they're saying? Do they have a clear vision, a clear strategy? Is the leadership of that company proven? And those two things, I think if you have both those things, you're onto a winner. For anyone wanting to get into solution consulting, have the curiosity, make sure you're challenging yourself, making sure you're running towards the situations that are difficult, because that's when you'll grow. And enjoy yourself. Enjoy the people that you're talking to. Life's a lot funner if you care about what you're doing, if you care about and take an interest in the people that you work with. Your days will fly by much quicker. So yeah, never take it too seriously either.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Emma, this has been great. Where does Emma Smith see herself in the next 5 years?
Oh God, I've never been, as you might be able to pick up from this conversation, someone with any kind of plan. I think at some point I would like to go back to more of a startup and a scale up, and help with that, and help maybe potentially like establish a solutions consulting role in a startup that doesn't have one. I'd really look to go to a product that I feel like adds something to the world, maybe in terms of sustainability or something. But honestly, I don't have a 5 or 10 year plan, probably to my detriment. I very much go off of gut. How am I feeling? Am I fulfilled? Am I coasting? Okay, I need to make a change. So
I love it. That's like brutally honest, but like that's authentic, and I think a lot of people are like that, and it's okay. Emma, this has been such a great conversation. We're not done yet. We've got a quick fire round.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get these out. So, yes, money or happiness?
Happiness.
Quick wins or long-term success?
It's a long term. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay. Work from home or work from the office?
Can I say both?
Yeah. Frequent updates with the latest features or stability with fewer updates?
Oh God, you do need both. But if you don't have stability, it doesn't matter how good your shiny new features are.
I love that.
But you do need both.
Okay. Proven solution or innovative but unproven?
I'm a risk taker. I love an innovative solution.
Yeah, okay, I love that. Would you rather travel to the past or future?
The past.
Okay. Who has it easier, men or women?
Men.
Yeah.
But equality would also give men an easier time as well.
Oh, okay. All right, nice. And then finally, dream dinner guest.
Okay, Ali McCoist.
Okay.
My dad's from Glasgow. I'm a big Rangers fan. I loved him growing up.
Okay.
I'm not into celeb culture, but I absolutely love Ali McCoist.
Okay, I love that. Emma, we do have a closing tradition on this podcast.
Okay.
With everything you've been through, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
what advice would you give your younger self, and would you still be doing the same thing?
I think I would just say believe in yourself a bit more, have a bit more confidence. That's definitely taken me time, and it's always a work in progress. I would have still been doing the same thing. I have no idea.
Okay.
I like what I do, but I could imagine myself in other careers. So, you know.
That's absolutely fair.
Who knows?
Emma, this has been such a great conversation. Do you want to plug any socials?
I'm not,
Okay, that's absolutely
I'm
fine.
not a social person.
What my best friend does, that's the plug. That's the plug.
What my best friend does, yeah.
Emma, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. Guys, if you've gotten to this point in the episode, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Let us know what other professions you want to know about. Emma, finally, just thank you so much. This has been another episode of What My Best Friend Does. If you didn't know, now you know. Over and out.